The traveler, or the moon as we call it, has a way to show us each month that a month has passed. It actually takes 2 turns in the same circle around our flat plane, and those 2 days it has the same rise and setting times. This is a very clear indication, of course, that we cannot spin around in a heliocentric model. This will, of course, be totally impossible to achieve for the moon or in any models they can put up with the globe. So in this perspective, this is also we could call it a proof or a fact that the Earth is not moving. That it is the moon and sun and all the stars that revolves around our heads. That's very, very simple to see with this, and you can see it's very funny because these markings of the months, they are always close to the full moon, and there's also kind of a pattern in them, how they are on the front side and back side of the full moon event. But of course, this will I will elaborate on this in a coming edition of my moon works. But in the first hand, I will publish these findings which make the heliocentric model totally impossible, and this is of course one of them. This can't be achieved in a heliocentric model. That's for sure. Next thing we are going to look at, it's another very funny thing. I will call the moon day-late paradox, because every single day we see the moon arrive again and again, and it arrives at different times and it's coming later and later every day. But the length of the days also varies. As you can see here, we begin with 14 to 13 hours. Now we have in moon daylight length, and it's rising because in this time it's close to where I'm living, and that therefore it's visible a longer time in the sky. That's a very simple fact, and of course these numbers, they are only valid for Denmark and the South Zealand part of Denmark, so you cannot compare this to where you're living, of course, unless you're living close to where I'm living. But if you take a program like Stellarium or other star programs, you will be able to see what the rise and set times are for your local time, and they will of course variate, because as you see it circles in and out, then it of course is varying if you're living in the South America part compared to my arrival and exit times. That's of course is very simple to see. But this moon day-length paradox, again, if you look at the heliocentric model where it spins around in all directions and so on, and this is not possible. And as you can also hear, I'm telling it's jumping from the Tropic of Cancer to the Tropic of Capricorn every 14 days, and this is what varies the moon day length, of course, because sometimes it's closer to my area, or sometimes it's farther away. And when it's farther away, it's like when the sun is in the winter setting here in Denmark where I live, then we have very short days, and it's the same when the moon is out there. It's a short moon day length. So here we are copying up and also the season change with the moon, as I also mentioned. Sometimes in April, which is, if you are seeing that video of mine, which is the real date for New Year's, because that's where the seasons actually change, and not in the midst of the darkness in December. But that's because they are sun worshippers, and that's another story, because my next main work will probably be around the sun, because there's some anomalies there we also need to highlight. Also something not so good for us, but everything should be out in the light, of course. But I'm working on the sun project as my next one. But the moon day-length paradox here, you can see very clearly how its arrival times changing. And if you see Earth spinning around its own axis every 24 hours, how will you explain this? in their model, it's jumping a little up and down every 14 days out in space, but that's not what it's doing. It's circling in and out, in and out, in and out. So, and furthermore, it would not even give a longer or shorter days because what will that do? It will jump up and down outside. So this is a clear proof for we have a stationary fixed Earth and the moon is rolling around us. Here in March, we can also observe the waxing phase of the moon. It's getting longer in the day length, but it will not get so long as normally when it's full, because normally when I say the winter setting, I mean, of course, the winter setting, because from my perspective in December, the full moon normally is a very long day length, but here it will be a shorter one because the full moon is moving towards the equator line and hence show us a season change in that way. So it's a bit complicated with March and April. These changing months, that's also why we have this unpredictable weather. We call it the fall and the autumn, of course. So. And it's a funny thing with the fall. I said it before that the moon falls back to the Tropic of Cancer and it springs down upwards to the Tropic of Capricorn. Here we see the full moon, the 12th March, is only 13 and a half hours long, which normally in December, if you're going back and watch these, they will be more like 16 hours because it's very close to where I'm living. So the whole moon day-length paradox, of course, generates a lot of problem for the globe. that's for sure. And the moon months markings also, they are. It is impossible, as I see it, to make a working model with the globe and doing this. So, but I think it's very interesting, as you can see, how its arrival time and exit times are very consistent to where the moon's location actually is. Is it further away from us? Is it closer to where you're living? And also, I will estimate, as I said before, that when it's traveling around in the Tropic of Capricorn, it's higher up and it's traveling a bit faster, maybe up to 22%. But of course, I have no airplane or anything way to measure this. This is not possible for what I have in a text available to me at this stage in my life. But maybe later, who knows? Maybe somebody would provide me with tools to investigate more. I'm certainly open for more investigation of the moon. That's for sure. There's a lot more happening to it. Here we have the closing phase of Mars and it's waxing again. And now it's the full moon will be located in the first quarter next to from the equator next to Capricorn. Sorry, it's not always easy when you're Danish and have to translate everything before I'm saying it. So sorry. Well, but that's how it is. And now here we also have in April, the 1st April, which is the New Year's. There's also clear indication in the sky for the New Year's, but I will publish that in another time because that's not for now to discuss what's here. Then I had to bring up new animations and so on. So I'll do that another time. But what's actually it's shown for us how we can see in the sky it's New Year, because it's actually it's a calendar. We can look up and say, okay, it's that's how it is. Also, one thing I can say about the moon phases, depending on is in the winter setting or summer setting, and where you're living. Again, that's a matter of perspective. But when it's like it's waning, for instance, let's say it's waning or waxing south, if you can say so. Let's stick to the waxing. Sorry. When it's waxing, it's sometimes it's in one season it's slightly more to the south. It's gaining, and in the winter settings it will then be reversed. Summer and winter, if it grows the one way from where you are seeing it, then you could be certain, and in the other season settings it will be waxing the other way around. So it's like left, right. You can see if it is what season you are in. And again, that's a matter of perspective, because some see it from another angle, so they see it upside down, sort of speak, seen from my perspective. And you will say, oh, he sees the moon in another angle. But that's how it is when it's like when you have the famous example with you can draw an M on a lamp, and then you can take a big room, put the lamp in the ceiling, and you can observe the lamp for 4 different angles, and then the M, of course, will be upside down depending on where you're standing in the room. That's just a matter of perspective. It's a very simple thing, and not very hard to understand, actually. So I will here with the moon daily paradox. There's much to study for everyone. You can take these going through these numbers again and see how the arrival times move, and the waxing phase is going up and down, and you can see the pattern in if it's going away from my perspective, the days get shorter, and if it's going towards me, they of course getting longer. But that's seen from a Danish perspective, of course, these numbers here, as I mentioned before, so don't take them as numbers for your own place where you live, of course, unless you live close to me. There's nothing more further to add about these moon daylight paradox and the moon months marking, which where it's take 2 turns in the same circle, more or less. I cannot say 100% that's what it's doing, but it's looked like that in stellarium because it's traveled these green lines.